All right, folks, the final file for this week um, is going to be, I'm going to start talking about hard light shading layers. Okay, so uh, they're really useful for helping to bring images together when you have two very different objects, right? And what I mean by that is if you look at this file that you have, okay, um, clearly this person does not belong in this background, right? So the separated out, put in, that's great. Um, What's going to help is to add some of the color from the background onto the figure. So there are a couple of different ways we could do this, but one way that's pretty easy, I think, is we're going to go ahead and make what's called a hard light shading layer. Now you can do this in multiple ways. Essentially, a hard light shading layer is a layer that has a 50% gray added to it, and then you paint the colors on top. Okay. Um, I will show you what I think is the easiest way, just to make your life a little easier. You could make a new layer, fill it with 50% gray, and set the blending mode to hard light. Okay. Or in this case, here's one of the few times where it's useful to come up to layer, new layer. Okay. And then just call it whatever you want. Right here, we're going to change the mode to hard light. And Photoshop already will give you this option automatically. It'll say fill with hard light neutral color 50% gray. Click that box and hit OK. And now you'll see over here on your layer stack, okay, that you have a gray layer, okay, over top of your singer. Now, in this case, I've already done this, so what you'll want to do to make it easier, you can either make a layer mask, or I think it's a lot easier because the underlying layer is already separated, is you go ahead, right, and you make it a clipping mask. Okay. Let me show you what happens otherwise. It's not a big deal, but so I'm going to take my brush. These hard light shading layers, by the way, really benefit from subtlety. Okay, so I am using the soft round pressure opacity. I do have a tablet, okay, um, that I work with when I do this kind of stuff. If you're doing this with a mouse, you're just going to have to drop your opacity pretty low, right? And even with the fact that I can brush this on with pressure sensitivity, okay, I still am keeping it pretty low on my opacity, because if I go all the way up on my opacity, even trying to keep it light, okay, it's going to make it pretty, I hate it when I get stuff, there we go. Okay, there's no subtlety to that whatsoever. Okay, so let me step back. So what I'm going to do, and by the way, let me just say that if you are planning on being a digital artist, if it's going to be a major part of what you do, um, whether as a hobby or for a profession, it is worth your time, and it is worth spending like $50 to buy yourself a tablet. Okay, now I have a Wacom Intuos, which is really nice. You don't, I mean, look, if you're made out of money and want to spend $250 on a tablet, it's a really good choice. You can get decent ones now for under $50. Okay, that have pressure sensitivity. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select colors from the background. Okay, and I'm going to start to brush them onto the model here. Now, as an artist, the other thing too that you want to think about is as you do this, okay, and again, keeping it very subtle. Okay, what you want to think about is like where the light's coming from, for example, right? So you've got a white light back here. You're going to get a little bit of blowout right through here. Okay, I'm going to shrink my brush down. And then you're also going to get a little bit of what's called, it's not a rim light, okay? But essentially the light will follow, here, let me do this first. There we go. The light is going to follow the form of the hair, right? So if you think about the hair going this way, okay, you're going to get what's called a glare arc, meaning that it forms an arc, okay, because it's going to follow the form of the hair. So I'm going to brush this on, and then you can come back to our old friend, the smudge tool. And here's a case where you can take it and kind of pull it so it follows the hair. Okay. And you can make a reasonably realistic looking glare arc on the hair. Okay. So for example, on the shades up here, okay, I would definitely choose like a pretty hot pink, I think, and brush that on pretty hard, and then take my white. Okay. All right, so let me point out a couple of things that I will do. Photoshop is really good at augmenting reality. It's not great at creating reality. You can do that, but it takes a long time and a lot of effort. Okay, so I'm going to take what I already have, which is there's some light here, right, on the forehead, and there's a little bit of form shadow, right? So I am going to just emphasize that. Again, she's in this club. The lighting is more intense, right? So I'm going to go ahead, like bottom of the nose, okay, and coming down the nose a little bit. Then underneath the chin, underneath the lips, okay. The lips themselves, I'm going to go ahead and paint probably a hot pink color. I might decide to drop it a little bit more later. Also, too, like, especially with the eyes, there's going to be reflections in the eyes. Like, don't leave her eyes white. You can move a little bit of the yellow in as well, some of the highlights. Okay. Really what this is about is just spending some time and looking at what you have, okay, and making this fit. So I'm going to brush some light pink over the entire face. Take some of my darker colors and use that to kind of emphasize, right, what I already have. The microphone is another place where you're going to want to have some pretty kind of intense blown out light. Okay. So I'm going to do a pretty hot pink right there. Right, and then I'm going to pick a darker color to bump the contrast a little bit, right, to make it look like it's even shinier. Okay, same thing on the fingers. I'm going to shade the fingers. I'm going to go ahead and take like a hot pink and put it on the top. Sometimes this gets, there we go, gets stuck. My keyboard likes, apparently the Alt key likes to stick. Okay, now on the darker colors here, okay, I want to do the same thing. I want to come in. I can make it a dark red, okay, but I do want to tint it. And the same thing on the shirt, right? I don't want to make the interior of the shirt like this, okay, because you'll notice it doesn't read right? It's going to read like there's a hole there, okay. But I do want to make sure I tint it, okay. And think about again what you already have, right? So if she was in this club and we're getting this light that's coming down, okay. You see these folds here. It makes sense for the folds. Pull lighter color, maybe there. Okay, for the light, okay, to be hitting the folds, right, and kind of the exterior of the shirt, and then pull it in a little bit, and I'll come back in, grab a darker color, okay, paint it back out, Command 0, right, come back out so I can kind of see what I'm doing, right, and again, what I'm looking for here is just paying attention to what you're doing and making it subtle, okay, and that's the difference between a really good piece and something that looks really cartoony, okay. So I'm going to brush a little bit of dark around the face to kind of make it pop out a little bit more. All right, take my pink again, push back in. I might add some yellow and a couple of the highlights. Okay. Now, you'll notice, like, I'm brushing on the background here. That is why you want to take this layer once you're done and go ahead and create a clipping mask. Okay, and now you're only painting on the figure itself. Okay. If I wanted to fade the skin out at all and into the background, I'd want to do this on a separate layer. Okay, so what I've already done, just to give you an example, I spent about 10-15 minutes on this. Okay, So this is about 10 to 15 minutes in. Okay. Still needs a little bit of work. I would come back in and I got a little bit too much yellow, I think, on my first shot out of the cannon here. Okay. But you'll notice now it looks like she belongs in this nightclub that's happening. Okay. And again, I want you to spend at least, it should take you like 20 minutes, maybe half an hour tops, to kind of really paint this in. Okay. But really try and start to tighten things up a little bit in the sense of making sure that that everything fits and it doesn't look as sloppy. Okay, because that's really the next step. By the way, one thing you want to be careful about. Generally speaking, I don't want to use a blue to shade around the jaw. Okay, because if I do something like that, it now looks like she has a beard. Okay, so generally speaking, with people who identify as female, okay, you want to keep any sort of a blue color away from the chin and mouth area. This is true for if you're going to work as an illustrator as well, just because it makes it look like they have 6 o'clock shadow. Okay, so now with a man and someone who identifies as male, by all means, feel free. Okay, because that doesn't look out of place. So, all right. So there we go. This is what I'm expecting on this one. Again, you have any questions, please shoot me an email. You run into any problems, let me know.